Hi guys! So today I'm coming to you with another book tag. I'm going to give another one of these a shot. I've seen a bunch of these kicking around on BookTube, and I'm so new I haven't been tagged yet in one of them, but Miss Victoria over at Books and Things was sweet enough to let me jump on her bandwagon for this tag her video that I saw, and I'll put a link to the original video below in the description. This particular tag really struck my interest because the questions were very personal and very thoughtful but simple at the same time. So I was like, oh, I really want to try that. So I'm going to give this a go and see what happens. And I'm going to leave this an open tag that if anybody, especially anybody new like me who's watching this and wants to give this a shot, just let me know and I'll put you in the description below and I'll tag you because I mean, give you a shot too, because I'm right there with you, bud. So the first question on the list is, what classic just seems to get you? And that's asking what classic, it could be a modern classic, it could be a classic, has a main character or a supporting character that you just really have an affinity for. Like it really, you read the book and you're just like, oh, I get them. And for me, that is Marianne Dashwood in Sense and Sensibility. This is my favorite Jane Austen, and I have my pretty copy and my sad copy. And the sad copy has been through the ringer, as you can see. I know I've already shown this one in my BookTube newbie tag, but I can't let it go. The reason why I relate to Marianne Dashwood is because when I was a teenager, I've always been very expressive on what I think and what I feel, especially. I just had no shame in what I was emoting at that moment. If I was angry, then you knew it. If I was sad, then you knew it and you knew why. Like, I don't repress. And I reached a place where I later on in my life, when I was older, where I felt like I needed to, and that I had to for the sake of, you know, societal expectations. And I reread Sense and Sensibility when I was in college, and I was like 20, and I was sitting there thinking, I'm like, Marianne Dashwood doesn't, and she lived in like one of the most oppressive times for women ever, and she said, forget this mess. If I like the guy, I'm gonna say it. I don't really care. I feel like people stereotype her as being shallow and silly and impulsive, and I don't think that's at all. I think she's gutsy. I think she's brave. And I'm not saying that I'm gutsy and brave, but what I'm saying is I just really relate to her need to be honest and to be frank about who she is, about what she feels about other people. And I also related to her because of her experiences, her romantic experiences, because, I mean, who doesn't have a Willoughby in their closet? Some jerk that really did a number to him. And you turn around and you go, well, maybe that wasn't the best thing to do, to let myself get carried away with that situation. And then you wake up and you realize being sensible is nice too. So, I don't know. She's just cool. Not that I'm cool. I'm not saying that I'm cool. I'm just saying that I really like Marianne Dashwood. Okay. The next question is a surprise. What book surprised you with how deeply it affected you? For me, that's actually a book that I just recently read last month. And I picked it up because it was one of those classics that I've been meaning to read for years. And I saw it in the freebie pile at my library. Like, I feel I talk about these books every single time I have a video. And I looked at it and I was like, oh, I don't have an excuse now. I need to read it. So I picked it up without really knowing anything about it except for the fact that it happens in South Africa. And I really enjoy South African literature, especially concerning the apartheid. And that era just really gets me. And so I picked up Cry the Beloved Country by Ellen Patton. And this book, if you are embarrassed about being emotional in public places, like, don't read this outside your house. Holy mackerel. I am like choking back the tears in the doctor's office, waiting for my appointment, being like, you can't cry here, you can't cry here. People are going to think there's something wrong with you physically. When you're healthy, it's just the book that's destroying you slowly on the inside. And I mean it. This book is incredible on so many levels, but it's the emotion behind it. It's so intense and honest. It completely floors you, and it's a lot about fear, and fear being the root of hatred. And I feel like there are a lot of things that have been going on in the world recently that you could relate to this book. And that's just heartbreaking to think that, this was written. What year was this written? Give me a second. I should know this. 1948. Nothing really changes. Nothing's new under the sun. And I know that's a sad, horrible, depressing thing to say, but it's nice to read that somebody else is recognizing that and is letting it affect them and trying to understand why the world is the way it is. So, Cry the Beloved Country. If you have the chance to pick it up, do it. Don't read it in public. The next question on the list is, what is a book that you read at just the right time? And for me, I'm going to be bending the rules here a little, and it's technically a series of books, but occasionally it is published as a single book. And that is The Lord of the Rings, and The Hobbit's in there too, but I'm talking about these three, and by JRR Tolkien, if you have been living under a rock. I read these when I was in the 8th grade. I picked them up in the autumn of 2001, right after the September 11th terror attacks. And I live relatively close to New York City, relatively, or at the time I did. And there was a lot going on. If you remember, if you were alive and remember that time, I know I'm one of the older ones on here, so I don't know how many people do, but just everything, all the fear that was going on, everybody talking about the anthrax and a possible another series of attacks, and the adults around us didn't know any more than we did, and at 13 you're not young enough to be completely sheltered like younger children are, but you don't have the maturity to grasp what's going on around you. And I escaped into these books like nobody's business. I got sucked in hardcore. I am talking like these books rocked my life for 13, 14, 15. I mean, I pick them up every once in a while if I feel like I need I just need to escape into that world again, just because they affected me so deeply at the time. And in retrospect, I think it was because the lines of good and evil in these books, in The Lord of the Rings, are so clearly delineated. And that's so different from our own world that's so gray morally, especially nowadays where you don't know, who really is the bad guy. I feel like we get so many different versions of it out there, and it's just like, you don't even know what's going on. And these are good because they were good one in the end, and there were repercussions clearly, but it was a world that felt safe because it made sense to me at 13. And that's why they're still really, really precious to me. Yeah, I did just go there. Precious. Okay, I gotta stop now. The next question is, what is a book that inspires you? And for me, this is kind of out of left field, I know, but it is Beowulf by who knows who. This particular translation is Seamus Heaney, who is one of my favorite poets of all time. I love Seamus Heaney, but we're getting off track. Beowulf, I just love Beowulf because it's just, there's something about it. I love the fact that we don't know who wrote the darn thing. We have no clue. It's just lost in the midst of time, and that's just really neat to me. And the fact that it's just so old, and it just feels like it's just an amalgam of all these different Northern European myths melded into one. And my favorite thing about it that just really inspired me, and I know this is kind of random, but I'm really intrigued by the figure of Grendel's mother. Mostly because I think she's just been seriously maligned in this book. I know. Everybody's probably like, what the heck? She's one of the villains. I think it was a ruse to take down the Celtic faiths and the pagan faiths of Europe by the Catholic Church, because I've taken classes on Celtic archaeology, and in them they talked about how part of their worship was to goddesses in sources of fresh water. And there have been found little figurines, prayer figurines in these ponds and in sources of streams and rivers, with like figures with ailments and stuff, praying to deities in the water, female deities in the waters, like for healing. And I think when you think about Grendel's mother and how she was living in this like stagnant pond area, and she's so grody and awful, and Beowulf is this shining bright male figure of, you know, virility and freedom and da 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 da, and he saves the day and kills the evil independent female who had a son without a father anywhere around. Anyway, I digress. I'm all about some Grendel's mother. That's all I got to say with that. The last question on the list is, what is the book that calms you? And for me, that is Winter Rose by Patricia A. McKillop. I'm not kidding when I say I reread this book at least once or twice a year. I have since I was 13. I love this book. I love Patricia A. McKillop's writing. I feel like there are some people who really don't like her because they think her prose is too flowery, but I just think it's completely hypnotizing, and I just get sucked into this world every single time. It is a retelling of the myth of Tamlin, and it is astoundingly beautiful. The writing, everything. The review on the back, it says, in this lyrical book, every sentence seems chipped from jewels or woven from water. The sheer beauty of the language is enough to transport you. And I really don't have any other better explanation than that. That's how it feels to me. And I think maybe because also I grew up in the woods, and a lot of this book takes place in the forest, and the main character's fascination with the wood behind her house, and the way that Patricia A. McKillop details it is so intoxicating. You can't, you really do, as the review says, you do get transported in a way that I haven't found in other books that attempt the same thing. And I can't recommend this one enough. If you love fantasy, just give it a shot. Even if you don't like that kind of writing that I've described, just try it. And that's the end of that tag. If you are interested in doing this tag, just leave a note for me, comments below, and I will put you in the description right beside Miss Victoria over at Books and Things, who was so sweet to let me to do this as well. And I want to thank her again. Go check out her videos if you have a shot. She's a real doll, seriously. And check out this video of hers. She's got a cute answer for the first question. So, well, not a cute answer, it's a serious answer, but it just caught me by surprise, and it was very introspective, and I just love that girl. So hit her up. All right, thanks. Bye.